Hello, everyone. This is a very impromptu meeting, so I will wait. I can't remember the last time I went live on this channel, so I will wait a few minutes um, for more people to come in. And also, I wanted to apologize in advance for any rumbling or whatever you may hear in the background. Mr. Viking is outside. Um, doing some repairs to the reflectix that he had put up um, in a previous video. And we had some wind come through when we weren't here. So if you hear some scratching and banging and all that, that's what that's about. So okay. Still trying to get set up over here, and I'm still going to give it a few more minutes. Now, if you're on, please say something down in the chat box here so that I'll know that you're here. And I know that you can see me and hear me okay. And also let me know where you're signaling from. We're back in Oklahoma. We were in Washington, D.C., but we're back in Oklahoma now. So um, now I can see some of you on, but I don't know who you are and I don't know where you are. So if you can put that down in the chat and make sure you do a thumbs up, please. So that I will know. Can you hear all that? I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. So just for a few minutes, I guess other people can watch the replay, but I wanted to talk a few minutes. I had a message for preppers. Just something that I've noticed over the last while, And now that we're in this um, really strange environment in the United States where it seems like we literally have two countries occupying the same landmass, um, I thought it was important that I come on here and say a couple of things. And that is, some people come from a background where they've always stored food. I hope Mr. Viking ain't falling off the roof or something. Oh my gosh. Where they've always stored food, or they were taught how to pressure can food or dehydrate food or raise their own livestock or kill their own livestock for meat. Excuse me. I wasn't raised with none of that. Okay. Let me just tell you right off, I wasn't raised with any of that. So I don't know anything about killing livestock. And I never saw my mother use a pressure canner. When I think back about it, I think my grandmother had one, but I never saw her use it, and I didn't know what the thing was anyway. So there's that. But some of you were raised where you did that kind of thing, or you helped your grandmother or your mother or some aunt preserve food, and so it's a way of life for you. And others are just getting into it. Sorry about the noise. Some people are just now starting to learn or trying to learn and finding that they can't find pressure canners, they can't find jars, they can't find lids, or any of the other equipment that it takes to preserve food that way. So, what I wanted to say was whether you're just now getting started or trying to get started, or whether you've been doing it for a while. One of the things that I've seen on YouTube and, some other platforms and other groups that I've seen online is that people have kind of gone from tutorials on how to do something. And I think they've gotten overexcited about what they've done and how much work they've put into it. And they've slipped over into showing people everything they have. So it's gone from this is how you do, I don't know, potatoes, or this is how you do um, jam or strawberry compote or whatever, whatever. And it slipped into look what I've got, right? So I just wanted to point out number one, for everyone that has taken the time to make videos and to show people how to do things that are really wanting to learn how to do it. I think that's a very admirable thing. There are some things that skill sets that people grew up with that are almost a lost art now. Everything is computerized and all this, and I can tell you that a computer is not going to fill your stomach. So while I appreciate people doing that, and doing tutorials and showing uh, those of us who weren't raised that way how to do these things, how to cull your flock or, um, um, you know, preserve food, dehydrate, and all these different types of methods. In the environment that we're in right now, it doesn't seem to be wise to go into here's all my stuff and this is where I keep it. In my opinion, it's kind of like having a safe in your house. And you go on social media and say, this is the kind of safe that I have. I keep it tucked away right here, and this is what's in it. I mean, to me, you're putting a target on your back. I don't understand why people are doing it. I mean, I think maybe they're trying to be helpful, but I think if you take a step back, it might take a mind shift for you to stop doing that. You just stop doing that because, like I said before, we're living, we're occupying space with people that have different mindsets about how the world should go, how the country should go, and all this. Some people feel like you need to work for a living, earn your keep, put in an honest day's work, and things will work out for you. Then you have a whole nother group of people, a whole nother country operating the same landmass as everyone else who feels like I don't want to work. I'm just going to stay home and whatever you have is what I'm entitled to. So now I don't know what side of that argument that you're on, but I can tell you this from watching videos and from listening to people talk, even though they may mean well and they explain how to do a thing, a lot of these people are armed, okay, and the food and supplies that they are putting away and that they've been learning how to put away their whole life has been for the preservation of their own family or their own homestead and friends or whoever else they have decided that they're going to put an effort forth to help if times got hard. So number one, I don't think it's wise to advertise everything that you have um, and where you're putting it. People can track your IP address and know where you're signaling from. So you've pretty much said, come to my house. If you're too trifling to do your own, come take mine, right? And the other question that I wanted to propose to you was excuse me, if you are a prepper and you do have a lot of supplies and things that you've been working on for, several months or several years, and you've got it all down to a science, and you would know how to take care of all the rest of us if you needed to, or whatever. What would you say to people that would come to your house that maybe, you've been putting out all these YouTube videos or Rumble videos or whatever platform that you're on, and they show up at your door and say, "Well, I didn't do anything because, all my stuff is at your house." I had somebody, I've heard of people saying things like that. And what would your response be? I mean, would you, hey, JC, today I'm talking about, I have a message for preppers. And my question is, what would you say to a person after you've put your hard work in trying to make sure, especially in light of the shortages and things that we are seeing in the grocery stores? Um, what would you say to someone who just shows up on your door that you have been trying to talk to or trying to teach about, my goodness, even for a natural disaster, you may want to make sure that you have some water set aside, or um, some staple items set aside that are easy to prepare, because you might be out of electricity for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or whatever, and you still have to be able to live. So my question is, what do you say to people that show up at your house that you've been talking to about preparing, and they haven't done anything? And it's not because they don't know how, it's because they feel like they know what you're doing, they know what you have because you've been on YouTube showing everybody what you have. So they're just going to show up at your house. You know, what do you say to that person when they show up at your house? That could be a problem. Depending on whose house they show up at, that could be a real problem, especially if the person doesn't know you. So I guess my message today is for people that prep and for people that don't. Um, know your lane and stay in it, and the reason that I'm saying that is because when people have uh, gone their whole life following their mother, their father, their grandparents, learning how to preserve food for their families, because I don't know, maybe they lived in an area or a state where the winters were very, very harsh, and maybe they lived out remotely. And so they learned how to do all this stuff in the springtime. They learned how to grow their own food. They learned how to preserve their own vegetables. They learned how to cull their herds or whatever, and to dress a deer, or when I say dress it, it just sounds better than saying gutting it and all that, or a cow, a calf, whatever. They've been doing this their whole life, right? So they know how to do it. They know what kind of weather to expect because they've lived there their whole life, or they just been trained to do it somehow coming up. And then you take, time out of your day or out of your life or schedule, and you're trying to encourage family members or friends to learn these skills, which is almost a lost art, especially in the generations coming behind those that are in our age group, that are seniors or approaching senior years. And people that come up behind us may not have a clue. And like I said, I didn't grow up with that. Uh, my grandmother, now looking back on it, she had a pressure canner. I never knew what that thing was. I mean, it would just look like some kind of a Frankenstein something sitting up on a high shelf in her kitchen. But I didn't know what that thing was. But now, like I said, thinking back on it, she had one. I never saw her use it. Um, my mother did not have one. She did not use one. Um, I didn't know anything about it until I start running across um, YouTube videos and seeing people do all that kind of stuff, and I was like, wow, look at that, you know. Now, obviously, preserving food has been going on for centuries. They have found butter and stuff that's been in the pharaoh's tombs or whatever that's been there forever. You know, in clay vats or jars or whatever. Um, uh, and Well, like I said, now you know you have the generations coming behind us that not only did they not grow up with it, but they're not interested. And so trying to get them to be interested and see the importance of being able to provide for yourself or sustain yourself is like pulling teeth. They'd rather be on a computer or in some chat room or whatever talking to their friends than learning some real life skills and survival skills. Anyway, I guess my message today is to be careful about what you're posting online, especially in light of the environment, the temperature of the country right now, when everything is so up in the air, and there are talks and whispers about another shutdown. Now, the president has said he is not going to shut down the country. It's not going to happen. Not from the federal level. However, it doesn't mean that there aren't governors and mayors that won't do it. As a matter of fact, we see governors and mayors doing it now, and people have been so devastated by the first shutdown that was supposed to be 15 days to, you know, slow the spread and 30 days to flatten the curve. And now we're almost a year into this. And not only are we almost a year into it, but it's gotten more restrictive and more uh, I don't know what you want to call it, but I will say this. I personally believe that some of these mayors and governors have gone way beyond their constitutional authority, and and they really believe that the American people are stupid and don't know how to use common sense. So, you know, so in light of that, you have people that are very anxious about what's going on. They've never taken the time to learn some of these life skills, how to preserve food or how to dehydrate or whatever it is you do, or how to cull a herd or something like this, how to identify medicinal plants, edible plants. They don't know these things. And if you're on YouTube, not only showing them how to do it, which is fine and admirable, but you're showing them what you have, how much you have, and where you have it. That's not a good thing. I'm just telling you, it's not a good thing, because there are people who have not taken the time to even consider that is not some kind of a, you know, tinfoil hat conspiracy theory thing to have some extra food sitting around, especially if you're in an environment or a climate that is prone to harsh winter or harsh summers or whatever, or you're prone to blackouts and things like that. So, uh, but to get online and tell everyone where your stuff is, like I said, it's like having a safe in your house with several million bars of gold or whatever. And you're so proud of what you have and what you've been able to amass that you're on social media, which goes around the world, literally, showing everybody what you have, where it is, and how secure it is. What do you think is going to happen when everything gets turned upside down, worse than it is right now? You have more shortages if they do another shutdown than what we have right now. And people start getting desperate. or they have that sense of entitlement. They're entitled to everything that you have. They didn't have to work for it. They don't have to contribute. They're just going to show up to their house, to your house, with um, they're going to show up to your house with their kids or their husband or their granny or whoever, and want to overthrow you and take what you have. How are you going to handle that? I mean, what are you going to do? And what are you going to do if it's family members that show up that you've been talking to forevermore about times like this coming, times of leanness coming, or um and they just blew you off. They act like whatever you had to say wasn't that important. If you were the idiot, you were stupid, or because I know people have come to me and told me that they've talked to their family members, and first everybody was kind of in shock over what happened the first time when this virus from China hit the United States. And people started panic buying, and they were just buying up all kinds of stuff. Some of what they needed, some they didn't need because they didn't know what to do. They just knew they didn't want to be caught short. So what happened was people that had not done any kind of preparation or that did not have any extra food set aside, and they go to the store and find out that there were whole shelves that were empty. That the meat department was virtually empty, and to the shock and horror, there was nothing they could do about it. And that creates a very desperate situation for some people. And so you would think that the first time around getting caught like that, it wouldn't happen to them again. But lo and behold, to some folks, they just don't learn. And now they're talking about doing it again. So one of the experiences that I had, and some of you may remember this, is right at the beginning, this past March, when all this stuff, all this craziness happened. My freezer went out, and I thought, oh my, it went out while I was out of town. So I found out when I came back. It's just, it's a little small deep freeze, just like a little overflow thing. And I find out when I came back that my freezer had gone out probably a day, maybe two, before I got back to town. I tried to find a freezer. There were none to be found anywhere. I mean, none. I went to every store. I looked online. There were no freezers. I remember several years ago, our city we had a storm that went through, and a friend of mine had a deep freezer. I think it was a pretty big freezer, and she lived out in the country, and she still does. And her power went out, and when her power went out, she had just filled her freezer, I think, with over $2,000 worth of meat and stuff, and I guess she didn't have a pressure canner or a water bath canner, and she lost all of her food. What she couldn't get into somebody else's freezer who did have power, she lost her food. And I thought, oh my goodness, wow, it's just these kinds of things happen, and with power shortages, with a possibility of an EMP, which is an electromagnetic pulse that can hit our atmosphere and take out all of our electrical grids and stuff. Um, it's just wise that if you're doing prepping, that you're not running your mouth, to everyone you know about everything that you have and every place you keep it is just not wise. And I'm telling you this because you need to be able to protect yourself from people who want to do you harm because they're desperate. Some people are desperate or they're in a situation where they have not been able to do anything because they lost their job in the first shutdown. You know, especially middle class workers and people that are not, you know, white collar workers. Their businesses were shut down and they were not able to recover from that when they were able to open, but they could only open at half capacity or whatever. It just wasn't enough to sustain them to pay their insurance and pay their workers and all this. So it was a snowball effect of people getting laid off and all this. So those people, uh, after they've was spent all of their savings and all this just trying to stay afloat and keep their mortgage paid and all this, they find themselves in a very desperate situation where they cannot pay their bills. Whereas they were, maybe it was a new business and they were kind of living from paycheck to paycheck if they were even getting a paycheck. Now they have nothing. The first stimulus package is long gone. There doesn't seem to be a second one coming anytime soon. And they're coming to your house because you've told them everything you have and everywhere it is. And I'm just saying, stop it. Okay. Thank you, Linda. if you want to help people, I saw this lady do a video. She has a homestead. She has a lot of acreage, her and her husband, and they have livestock and they have a pretty big place. She does a lot of tutorials and stuff. And she was wondering the same thing I was wondering. You know, what are you going to do with all these people if they start showing up at your house? Now, what she said was when she started canning, I don't know how long ago she started. It seems to me like something she was raised with. I don't know. Like I said, I wasn't. But she said when she started canning, she had to go through her mind and think, okay, if stuff gets really bad, who am I going to try to help? And so she talked about her in-laws. I think she says she has an aunt or something that's disabled and doesn't have any children or whatever. So she's got a list of people that she's willing to help. And how she's going to help them is that every time she goes to the store, she's going to pick up something extra just to make sure that by the time she went through her list, it sounded to me like she was prepping for about 10 people. And I was like, wow. Now, like I said, she's got a pretty big place and they grow all of their own stuff. She says whatever she can't grow herself in the region that she's in, she gets it from the store, which is, shipped in from somewhere else. But she also said, and pretty much put it out there, that if you're not on her list, you don't show up at her house. And she did a lot of video tutorials. I don't remember her ever showing everything she had. And I haven't watched a lot of her videos, but I'm just saying on the ones that I saw, I don't remember her showing everything she had in every place it was. I do remember seeing her show her homestead outside, like she was growing loofah sponges and things like that. And I'm sorry about the light going in and out like that, but anyway. So she was showing what she was growing and different problems that she may have had with bugs and things like that. But I don't recall her showing her whole pantry and everything that was in her pantry and how much of stuff she had. I don't remember seeing that, but maybe I just didn't look at enough videos. Just somebody that I ran across. So I Mr. Lucky. I'm doing okay.
Hello, Lucky.
Mr. Viking said, hello, Lucky. He just came in from hammering around outside trying to fix that Reflectix. Anyway, I just want to tell you guys, be careful. Be careful. I can't stress it enough. We are in some very tense times right now. I started this video out by saying we are at a position in our country where we have two separate countries occupying the same landmass. Some feel like you should be completely dependent upon the government, and others feel like I want to be self sufficient. I don't want to depend on the government. I don't want the government in my business. The government is supposed to work for the people. The people are not supposed to be enslaved to the government. So you have two different mindsets that are conflicting here, and how people view, how their worldview is going to determine how they respond in a time of a crisis when there are food shortages and things like that. So someone was telling me that they went to a gun show and they were trying to find ammunition, or they can't find ammunition anywhere. And this is again what I'm saying. Most people that have their own homestead, their own farm, and they have been preparing food and I hope y'all can see me because the lighting is just kind of funky. They've been preparing food and putting stuff away. They have every intention on guarding what they have and the work that they've done trying to take care of their family. And Mr. Lucky said you need 2,000 pounds of dried products per person per year. And that's the other thing. Now, this is something that I learned from being in the military. When I was in the military, it was nothing for them to drag us out to the woods in some foreign country for over 30 days at a time. For over 30 days at a time with dry food. And the mess sergeant had to make sure that there was enough water, or there was a big old truck that would come around to bring the mess sergeant water for coffee and stuff like that. Plus the soldiers, we had to have water in our canteens, clean water in our canteens, to be able to rehydrate the food that they gave us. So I'm back to that, right? If you are a person who grew up learning how to dry your food, making jerky and stuff like that. Again, I did not come up like that. Okay, I ain't got a clue how to dehydrate. No, I've never done. I don't know how to do that. But anyway, if you have a lot of food like that, then you have to make sure you have enough water to reconstitute all that. Now, I know that just from being in the military, that, or we had MREs when I was in the military. I don't know what they're doing now. I know before my time in the military, there was what they call them, C rations or something like that. Everything was in a can already cooked. And those soldiers, them guys was used to just, using that funky little can opener thing that they opening up their can and eating it like that. No. Anyway, I mean, I guess if you have to, right? But, oh, by the way, I see how many of you are on here. Please give this live shooting a thumbs up. And please make your comments in the comment section because I am reading them. Anyway, so we had the MREs. We had fruit that came dehydrated, strawberries, fruit cocktail, peaches, and it was all dehydrated. It was almost like, if you know what sea foam is, it was almost made like sea foam. And you could eat it that way, but you probably better drink some water or it might bind you, mess up your bowels, right? But we just, you could add water to it and it would literally just turn into fruit cocktail, or strawberries or something like that. So yes, the P38, yes, can opener. I couldn't think of what you call that thing. I've been out for so long now. But anyway, so I know some things just from having been in the military. How to build a fire and how to, you know, sleep in the cold. And now I don't want to sleep in the cold, but I can. I know how. It's a mind thing. You just got to shut your mind off so that you don't realize how cold you are, so that you can keep functioning. But anyway, like I said, I just wanted to come on and say what my concern was, because I've seen a lot of this. And I mean, now, if you've done it, if you've made videos and you're a prepper and you're showing everybody where all your stuff is and all that, you can't undo it. I mean, you can try to take the video down. I don't know. My understanding is once something's up there on the internet, it's up there forevermore, unless whoever is controlling the server pulls it down. And if you're using YouTube, it ain't on your server. It's on their server, which I think belongs to Google. Good luck with that one. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you, be careful and use some wisdom and not put everything out there, because, the idea of someone coming to your home, threatening your family, and wanting to rob you of what you've done to try to prepare for hard times is not a pleasant thought. And when people are desperate, they do desperate things. I mean, you can see it at convenience stores and other stores where they walk in, cameras fully rolling, and they still walk in with a knife or a gun or something to rob the place of something as stupid as cigarettes or beer or whatever their addiction is. And people that are hungry will do some pretty desperate things. So, Mr. Lucky said, never show your guns or ammunition on YouTube. Well, right. This is what I'm saying. People that have been preparing food and setting stuff aside just because they live in a hazardous area, for winter or whatever. And they're out in the boonies somewhere where the roads close and they put away all this stuff. I've heard of people that have spent the whole summer canning food for the winter so that they don't ever have to go out during the winter and get anything. They may have to chop wood, for a fire. They have an alternate source of heating if their electric goes out. These people have thought this stuff through, and they either were raised that way, like I said, or they learn that skill because of what they've seen, going on in society. And I can tell you, they're not going to just let you walk up to their door and expect to just take what they have. It ain't happening. You're going to end up with a bullet in your brain. So, yeah. And the other side of that is you don't want to be the one that has to put a bullet in somebody because they're threatening your family or they're threatening your livelihood, or your way of life. And so this is just something that had really been on my mind for the last few days. And I think it's because of the videos that I was running across, and I thought about the different videos that I had watched, of people showing their pantries and all this kind of stuff. And like I said, if a person knows how to go online and track down your IP address, they can come right to where you are, hold you at gunpoint, rape your wife or, your kids, threaten to kill them, whatever, until you hand over whatever you have. And I don't want to see that happen to anybody. So I just wanted to say to please, Mr. Vikings back there singing James Brown. But anyway, be careful of what you're posting online, especially in the climate that we're in right now. Because the people from the other country that live here who don't really think like free will Americans, they think more like socialists and communists, are coming to a neighborhood near you if you keep putting your business out there like that. So, oh my gosh. JC says, I don't mind putting a bullet in a hand.
That's right.
Don't touch my doorknob. Oh my gosh.
Using both hands and shooting straight.
Anyhow. So, does anybody have any questions about what I said? Or maybe this would have been better like on a Zoom call or a Skype call or something. Then we could all just kind of have a chat about it. But now I see the thumbs up and they ain't matching the number of people that are online here.
Uh-oh.
So if you haven't given this a thumbs up, please go back and give it a thumbs up. I don't know. Anybody else have any thoughts? I thought that was really good, Mr. Lucky, to tell people, don't show them what you have in the way of self-defense. That's dumb too. So, I know people mean well. They really do mean well. They're trying to be helpful. They're trying to help other people get prepared. But like I said, in the current environment that we are in, you can do a tutorial and you can show someone how to do something, but you don't have to show them everything that's in your pantry or your what do you call it, root cellar, or I don't have a root cellar, but anyway, you know, you don't have to show everybody everything that you have and everything that you've done and how much there is and where it is. Just why would you do that? I don't know. Anyway, I think people have a false sense of security. And they just don't think. I don't think that a lot of people understand the seriousness of the climate that we're in right now as a nation. It is serious, folks. I mean, we're on the brink of something crazy, okay? And having said that, is that and seeing these videos of these people that are putting out all this information about their business is what has prompted me to come on here and say, stop. You are not paying attention to the climate of this nation right now. And if you know anything about history anywhere, I mean, you can look at Westerns and see what has happened when an opposing force has tried to move in to a town or move in to someone's ranch or homestead or whatever. It never ended well, you know, with people trying to just take from you what you've worked your whole life to build or whatever, because they feel entitled to your stuff because they were too trifling, or life situations put them in a position where they were not able to do anything, which is a completely different issue. Like I was mentioning the lady earlier, who has a disabled family member who has no children. So she's purpose in her heart that when she does her preps, that she's going to make sure that she's preparing for this person as well. The other thing is, I had asked you guys at the beginning of this, if someone showed up at your door, what are you going to say? Now, listen, it's easier to say, I'm just going to tell them no, than it is to tell them no if they're standing there with two little kids or two babies that are hungry and they have nowhere to go. Now, so the question is, does it depend on what their situation was? Will that determine whether you say, I'm sorry, you can't come here? Or is it just a flat no for you? I mean, I'd really like to know. I personally think it really depends on the situation. If, like I mentioned before, if it was someone who had their own business and because of the shutdowns, they got caught up in all this stuff and there's no more stimulus coming to help them. Maybe they were farmers and they lost their ranches or something like this, because in the very beginning of this, when everything closed down, I mean, just at the beginning of spring, folks, this was March. This is when animals are you know, some of them are calving and doing all this kind of stuff. Now the plants shut down. There's nobody working the fields to pull in any harvest. The cows can't go to the processing plant because the plants are shut down. So you have farmers that are executing their livestock because they can't feed them, because there's no one working the fields to get the feed to the feed store so that the farmers can feed their livestock. So what do they have to do? Rather than let them starve to death, they were putting them down. And then that led to a run on freezers because they didn't want to lose everything. So they're putting their animals down. They're literally pouring out milk by the gallons because no processing plants were open because of COVID, and so all the freezers disappeared, which is what happened to me. My freezer went out when all the freezers disappeared. It was crazy. So you have these things going on, and all these different things, all these different dynamics. What if it was a farmer, right? Lost their farm, lost their ranch, in the middle of all this, trying to wait for Congress to get their crap together to actually work for the American people, stop taking all these holidays when everything is supposed to be so deadly, and all this. And here, this guy done lost his farm, or this woman has lost her ranch and had to put her animals down, or whatever. What do you say to that person when they show up and they've got their kids and they know they've seen your YouTube videos and they know that you've been prepping for a long time? And so you've got all this food and you've got all this stuff. What do you say to that person? You might not know them. Maybe they live somewhere near you, but you didn't really have a relationship with them. But they've been following you on YouTube. So they know that you got all this stuff and they know where it is. How are you going to protect it? How are you going to defend it? What are you going to do? What are you going to say to them? I'm sorry, you can't come here, or you can come here, but what do you have to offer? Do you have a skill set? Do you have some, if you're going to come here, you're going to work, bring your food. I mean, what would be your way of handling that? Amber said some people are just flat out lazy, and it's the truth. So what do you say to those people? Oh, I'll just come to your house. Because what do you tell them? I'm just coming to your house. What you coming for? A can of beans or a bullet? What you coming for? So there's that. Mr. Lucky says, I've been through the Great Depression. You saying, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I have barely enough for supper. Yeah. I mean, because even people that have been preparing haven't prepared for having food eternally. At some point, it's going to run out. Now, if we end up having a government, I told you guys there's two countries occupying the same landmass. So we end up having a government who feels like you're not supposed to own anything, no property, just like communist China. They don't own anything. Everything belongs to the government. That's why if you piss them off, they can just put you out on the street, or they can block you from being able to get on an airplane or whatever. Okay, so let's just say that type of government took over the United States. Right now, we're still somewhat free. But if that type of government took over the United States, and you can't own anything, you can't own land. I mean, you can work the land, you can raise vegetables and stuff, but it ain't yours. It belongs to the politicians. It belongs to the leader of the country. You don't own anything. And if they want to tell you you're expected to raise X amount of food per year for me, and you can have a small percentage of that for you and your family, right? Because that's really where some people are trying to push us to. And we'll give everybody the same amount of rations, meaning everybody will be equally miserable, except them, okay? And somebody shows up at your house and says, I don't have enough, or I said something that the government didn't like, so they shut me down, or and they put me out of my house, and they put me out of the house, they put me off of the land, and so here I am at your house, And now you're required to report them to the government because they done fell out with the government. It's just a big mess, folks. And I'm saying you you got to know where to who was that came out with that slogan? Oh, it was about drugs. Just say no. I don't know if that came out in the 70s or 80s or whatever. I'm dating myself, but there was a slogan. Mr. Viking said it was the Reagan administration. It came out with that war on drugs thing. I thought that was Bush. But anyhow, just say no. You're going to have to say no. And you're not being mean. You're not being mean. So don't get into a guilt trip. I think what I'm trying to do is, number one, ask you to exercise some wisdom in what you're doing and what you're advertising. And number two, mentally prepare you for saying no. Okay, you're going to have to say no. And the reason that I say that is because no matter what you do, even if you started in the spring and you've been canning and water bathing and doing all this stuff trying to fill your pantry, it ain't going to last forever. If this government turns in a direction where you are not allowed to own anything, your own land or anything, you may be told you can't grow anything else. So what happens with the food that you've prepped? You're going through it, but you can't replenish it because the shelves are basically empty and you can't own any land. You can't plant anything. You can't do any of that. You have to be completely dependent upon the government, who's going to give you rations, and you're going to have to make it stretch because it can barely feed you and your family. So, there's a lot to think about here, in regard to this kind of thing. But like I said, some of you guys been following our channel for a long time. I don't remember the last time we were on here live, but it's really, really pressing on my heart to say, please, please be careful. I know you mean well, and there's thousands of people that appreciate the tutorials and the advice and the show and tell that you've done in regard to your pantries and things. But I really don't feel like this is the time to be doing that. And if there was any way to pull down some of those videos, you may want to try to find how to do that so that you don't come under threat. Your family doesn't come under threat because people are desperate and they want to live too. And like Amber said, some people are just flat lazy, and they are, and they just feel entitled to come take your stuff. I remember seeing a program some years ago called, I think it was called American Preppers or something like that. And there was this young man that would come on, and he's waving a like not a machine gun, but I don't know what that thing was. It was some kind of a rifle. It was a long gun of some type. He's waving this thing around and he's threatening people, and he's telling people, you preppers out there, yeah, me and my team, me and my posse, we're not going to prepare anything because we're going to come to your house and we're going to take everything you have. First of all, the guy was a felon, so he was an idiot for getting on the show or making videos and waving a gun around because he was a felon and he wasn't supposed to have one. So guess what? Knock, knock on his door, and they came and arrested him. The feds came and got him and put his sorry butt in jail for being stupid. My point is not that he was stupid saying that, but that he was stupid saying that because most people, like I said, that are preppers are armed. Don't get yourself in a pickle. Now, if you're on here and you haven't done any preparing, don't be telling people you coming to their house to take what they got because you got a death wish. I'm telling you right now, don't do it. Don't do it. Go to the store, get what you need, as much as you can that you're going to eat or you're going to use. Don't just be buying up stuff just because you're panic buying, but make sure that the stuff that you get is stuff that you actually need. And Mr. Viking has his hand up. I know this.
Hello, striking Viking here, ringing up from a galaxy far away, actually in a recliner about 3 feet away from the Trippin' Sister. What I could recommend to you, and this is something that we have done, so we're letting the cat out of the bag. Find a book called Edible Plants of North America and also Medicinal Plants of North America. And keep that on hand in case, just in case of something.
For example, you know those pesky dandelions that show up in your yard every year? If you don't have a dog or a cat or an animal that goes outside and eliminates or eliminates out on your yard or something like that, those dandelions are medicinal. They are diuretic, meaning they can help you lose excess fluid and all kinds of stuff, right? And it's good. It's a cleanser. It helps the liver. You can pick those before they flower, before they turn into that white puffy thing that spreads all the seeds everywhere. You can pick that. You can use the root. You can use the leaves. You can use all of that. And there's also like this stingweed. The stingweed, if you dare touch it, because it will sting you, has like a white milky substance that comes out of it that is like, now listen, I ain't trying to tell y'all go start sucking on these leaves, okay? But it's like the equivalent of like a morphine or heroin. It's medicinal, right? Anyway, get a book. When Mr. Viking said we've done this, yeah, we went and got a couple of books, or I ordered them a couple of books because I was wondering about, what about medication? If some of you are on medication, what natural thing can you do that will do the same thing as the medication that you're on? Because a lot of our medication came from India and China, and we are not in a good place with China. Okay, so there's going to be a shortage. There already is in certain medications because we've cut off trade with them. If you can't get what you need, then there might be a natural remedy for that. And it would be a good idea to know what that is and how to prepare it for yourself. So I'm just saying, that's why we ordered the 2 books. Mr. Lucky says there's 26 plants I can eat in Oklahoma. Amber said in Arizona, we just had red rocks. My daughter lives in Maricopa, and yeah, there ain't a whole lot going on in the desert. However, if you have cactus, if you have prickly pear, you can eat that. That's edible. You can eat the pears and you can eat the leaves. Just be careful that you don't stab yourself. So yeah, and thank you, Amber, for saying that the dollar store has so much food. And that's the other thing, folks. If you can't afford to go to Walmart or Kmart or whoever all else, Piggly Wiggly or whatever it's called, Acme, like the Roadrunner, if Kroger, wherever, if you can't afford to do that, you can go to the dollar store and they have food. And guess what? It's $1. So go to the dollar store, get some cans of soup, buy some crackers, buy beans, buy rice. Just make sure you have extra water. You can get water. We've seen cases of water at what's it called? Dollar Tree. If you have a Dollar Tree in your area. So just look around at places where you can go and you can get things. I'm just asking you not to advertise what you have. If there's someone that you love and you care about and they're not able to help themselves and you want to do that, you don't even have to tell them that you're doing it. Just do it. Just do it for them, right? And when they do show up, if they do show up, if they're not too embarrassed or whatever to come and ask you for help, you've already set stuff aside, for them, anticipating that they might need help from time to time. And also, like I said, I would suggest if someone shows up at your house and they haven't done anything, they need to have a skill set. They need to be able to know how to do something to contribute. Otherwise, you'll just have a beached whale in your living room sucking down all of your provisions, and taking food out of the mouth of your family members, whether they're adult or not. So, even the well to places where people pay high rent have a dollar store. Okay, right. And JC says, I keep homeopathic remedies, blood pressure meds. You have to, yes. And in regard to homeopathic stuff, I don't know a whole lot, but I did do some research on some things, and I found that if you can go to a Mexican market, they would have dried flowers called hibiscus. They call it jamaica, but it's hibiscus flowers that are dried that work as a diuretic, and your pressure goes high because you're a lot of times you're retaining fluid, and it makes it harder for your heart to pump the blood through like it's supposed to go through. So what a diuretic does is it helps your liver and your kidneys process that excess fluid and release it from your body, relaxes your blood vessels and all that, and helps release it from your body so that it's not so much strain on your heart. That flower can do that. So there's that. The dandelion can do that. So things like that, right? If you have a specific medical issue, what just look it up while you still can. Okay, look it up. Homeopathic a remedy for high blood pressure, or a homeopathic remedy for a bug bite or a wasp sting or something like this, and just set it aside, in the event that because we're on the outs with China, that you can't get the medication at the store anymore. Anyway, so I just wanted to come on and talk to you guys, and try to get some of your thoughts. And I really appreciate you guys jumping in and giving some suggestions and where to go to find things. That is so helpful to people who may not know. Amber says, if someone shows up at my doorstep for help, I would tell them I have some expired food. Do you want it? But that's all I have. That's all I have, and you are getting. Yeah, there's that. Now, just because something says Best Buy doesn't mean it's expired. And just because something says it's expired doesn't mean it's expired. Okay?
If you have a tin that's bulging,
right. If you have a can that's bulging, yeah, don't open it. Don't open it. Don't open it. Just throw the whole thing away. But if you have something that says Best Buy such and such a time, that means after that point, the quality of the food in the container starts to degrade. It starts to lose its nutritional properties and stuff over time, right? So is it still edible? Yes. Is it as healthy for you? Will you get all the benefits from it that you would have when it was fresh? No, you won't. So, all right, folks. I think I'm finished with my rant. So, I've kept you guys on here over an hour. And Ms. Lucky says you should have 5 years of medicine put up along with over-the-counter medicine. Yeah, if you can do that and you got the space to do that, do that. Yeah, that's a thing to do. One of the things that I did do was I learned how to make soap. So I did learn how to make soap, and a couple years back, I haven't made any in a while, but I know how to make it. So there's that, right? Oh, did you? Planner lady said I done your garlic and honey. How long is that good for? A very long time. Put it in your refrigerator. It should have thinned out. You guys know that honey starts out really thick. And I did a video a while ago because I was preparing for flu season. I'm thinking, oh Lord, they're talking about another wave is coming through and flu season. So I thought, okay, Garlic has antiviral and antibacterial properties in it. So does honey. And I thought, well, why don't I just put the two together? So I took about 2 cups, I guess, of garlic, fresh garlic, or in some stores you can buy it already peeled in a bag and it's still fresh garlic. It's like uncooked. I put it in a jar. I took a bottle of raw honey, like local raw honey, and poured it over that, and it'll start to ferment, right? And then like by the next day, it had thinned out to like a cough syrup consistency, maybe a little bit thinner. And I started getting like a little bit of a scratchy kind of throat and started feeling a little bit nasally. And I took a tablespoon of that, of the honey, with like 3 or 4 cloves of garlic on it. And I'm telling you, in that night or by the next morning, I was fine. Whatever that was trying to get a hold of my throat and my sinuses and all that, it just knocked it right out. And so that's something you could do. The only thing that I would say about that is to make sure that you sterilize the jar that you're going to put it in. Don't just wash it with soap and water, because you want to make sure, since you're doing this for medicinal purposes, you want to make sure it's as sterile as possible. So sterilize your jar. Only thing you have to do is you can fill it halfway or a quarter of a way with water, preferably distilled water, because it doesn't have a bunch of stuff in it like tap water, and put it in your oven on 200 for 30 minutes. Let it cool down, when you take it out, and so that you can handle it without scalding yourself. And put your garlic and honey in there. I did a batch where I used garlic, honey, and lemon, fresh lemon. So, and I still have some of that. You can also ferment food. If you don't know how, if your electric goes out and you have a bunch of fresh vegetables in your refrigerator, you can ferment it very easily. If you can get to the store and get a gallon or a couple of gallons of distilled water, and you have some natural salt like Himalayan salt or salt that comes from a company called Real Salt, or you have canning salt, you could take a tablespoon of that, put it in a quart jar, cut up your vegetables, stick them down in there, pour water over it, put the top on it loosely, and in a week's time, you'll have fermented vegetables. They'll keep a very long time without having to be refrigerated. So there's that. Yes. Mr. Viking was saying they found a clay jar of honey in the tomb of the pharaohs. Yes, and it was still
honey.
It was still honey. It was edible. So let's see. Amber says, if Biden gets in there, are you planning to keep your RV? Well, why wouldn't I keep it? He ain't moving in.
You're looking for a donation, Amber?
Oh my gosh. Says, I'm not if he does. Why not? Why wouldn't you keep it? It's our RV is paid for. Why wouldn't I keep it? What if I got to get out of town or whatever? If things got really crazy in our city where our house is, and we had to just go, we had to get out of the city, this is where we would come to. We're about an hour away from the city. And this is where we would come to. And then we still have a vehicle, actually two, that we could get in and get away from here if we had to. So I would not want to give up my RV, because it is another source of transportation and it is a home on wheels. So I would probably keep it. You are so funny. Oh my gosh. Mr. Lucky says multivitamins. Yes, make sure you have multivitamins. Oh, I see what she's saying. Amber is saying that he wants to make it where you have to take the vaccine in order to travel. Well, I'm not taking a vaccine. So I wouldn't care who put the vaccine, and it's not because I don't trust the current administration. I don't trust the people he's working with. So I don't trust the pharmaceutical companies. That's the whole purpose of looking for natural remedies and things, that I can put together myself that I know what's in it, right? If there's no aborted fetal tissue or, monkey brain or whatever all else in it that Frankenstein put together in his lab. No, thank you. I think I'll pass on that. Right. And they have tested some of this stuff and it ain't working out too good. So um I probably would not give up my RV unless I had to flee, and had to get in something that could move faster. That's the only way. So because we're out in the country here and you know, we could see a dog coming for 3 days. So, but it's a little bit harder when you're in the city. It can get congested with traffic and all that if people are trying to evacuate for whatever reason. But we are out here kind of in the boonies. So this is probably the safest place for us to be. Okay. Amber says her RV is paid for as well. Yes, Mr. Lucky. Mr. Lucky said honey is an antiseptic been used for thousands of years. It sure has. If you have an open wound, you can put honey on that and it'll kill bacteria. So I'm telling you guys, you have stuff that's in your kitchen right now, or that you can go get right now for a reasonable amount of money and start setting it aside for a different purpose, right? That's all I'm saying. I'm just trying to help you. The sister trying to help you. I'm trying to help y'all. Monkey pus and snake venom. What in the world?
What is that supposed to cure?
Oh man. Ah, Mr. Lucky said he would let us adopt him. Ah, no, you don't want to go to Canada. Oh, they crazy. They are crazy. You do not want to go to Canada. Them fools have lost their mind up there. Wow. Mr. Viking is trying to come here. He's trying to become a U.S. citizen because they're, listen.
I still have several more months to wait before I can apply for the citizenship. Got the green card, so they can't kick me out.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a legal immigrant right now. So we just have to wait until he can apply for citizenship, which since, some people just want anybody and everybody to come in, it ought to be pretty easy for him to get it. Yes, I did. Now, what did I do? Planner lady asked, didn't I have a cough medicine where I used horseradish?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I did. It was
but boy, it cured coughs.
My master tonic. Yes, ma'am, I did. Yeah. Which is another thing. Listen, you guys, listen. When I started seeing stuff was going kind of crazy, and that was long before this whole virus thing happened. I just started wanting to get away from pharmaceuticals because I don't trust them. I don't trust the pharmaceutical companies. I don't trust anybody that can jack up an EpiPen or diabetic medication from, $20 or $30 to $500. You do not have my best interest at heart. I don't have diabetes, but if I was a diabetic and I saw a pharmaceutical company do that, you're trying to capitalize on my sickness. You most certainly don't have my best interest at heart. So when I start seeing things like that and hearing that people had to choose between medicine and food, I thought, you know what? I need to just start kind of backing off my dependency. You'd be surprised how dependent you are on the powers that be because we just been born into this kind of a thing. And you really have to take a step back and look and see where can you do things different and become more self-sufficient. So yes, I made a master tonic. It had horseradish, it had fresh horseradish in it. It had turmeric in it, garlic, onion, and apple cider vinegar. And I put a couple of cinnamon sticks in it. And it made a master tonic. It took a couple of weeks for it to cure. And yes, I remember. Yes, matter of fact, I have some here in the RV. I had so much of it, and now it's really getting low. But I have some here in the RV, and I have some at the house, and that I have had since 2017, I think. It doesn't go bad. Ain't nothing gonna grow in that vinegar, okay? It doesn't go bad. But apple cider vinegar or any type of vinegar really will help inhibit viral activity and stuff in your system. It's just hard for viruses and bacteria to live in that kind of environment. So, and what Mr. Viking and I would do is we would take a shot, just a regular little shot glass like this. We take a shot of the Master Tonic in the morning and we take a shot of it in the evening, and we did not get sick. My grandson, on the other hand, he just couldn't do it. He took one shot, and it was spicy too, because I think I had jalapenos in it or something. He took one shot of it and decided he just couldn't do it. And guess who got sick that year? He did. Nobody else did, but he got sick with a flu. So I haven't had a flu in a while, and I ain't trying to get none either. I ain't trying to get one by way of a shot, and I ain't trying to get one by way of the air. I ain't trying to get no flu. No kind of flu. The Kong flu or no other kind of flu. I ain't trying to get a flu. So, yeah, if you guys go back and look in the, I don't know if it'll be in the playlist or whatever, but the making of that horseradish, I did the video, and I did the whole step-by-step thing on there. So, yes, yeah, I heard about that. You can't legally hold them liable if you end up losing the feeling in your hand after being given the vaccine. Yeah, I heard about that. Mr. Lucky says, I worked in a lab for 40 years. My motto is do not trust anyone with your. Wow. Now, see, I know, right? Nope, can't do it. There's only one of me, and I ain't sacrificing me on the altar of an experiment. No, thank you. Anyway, does anybody have any questions for me before I let you guys go? Because this really was an impromptu video. It's just that it was just burning in my heart that I should come on here and say something. So, Mr. Viking and I was in Washington, D.C. last weekend. That was quite the experience. I haven't uploaded that video. I kept thinking to myself, wonder if the haters will come on here. YouTube might shut the channel down or whatever. But anyhow, thank you guys for your time and for tuning in. And thank you for the thumbs up. I really appreciate it and the interaction. And I would encourage you guys that came on a little bit later after I started to go back and look at the chat and see the different suggestions that different one, Mr. Lucky and Amber and JC put on here, things that you can do to help yourself and to become more self-sufficient so that you're not dependent on Big Pharma and you're not depending on somebody else to take care of you. There's skills and things that you can learn to do. It's not too late. You can still learn to do some of this stuff and really give it some serious thought about how you're going to take care of your family if things get really, really desperate, which is what, some of the powers that be are trying to force us into a depression. And because they want the whole world to be on equally poor, except them, of course. So anyway, just go back, look at the question. Look at the responses and share this video with your friends. Maybe it will encourage them to rethink how they're doing things and rethink how they're seeing things, and how maybe they should be doing things or change up some things or whatever, and keep your business to yourself. And having said that, it's been fun. I'll see you guys the next time I come on. Keep tripping.